Thank you for coming. I'm the aforementioned Kevin McCullough, and while the panel gets comfortable, I just want to direct your thoughts to a couple of things before we have this discussion. I want to thank Paul for having this vital day. This is not something that's talked about nearly enough in the church and certainly not enough in the media, and I think we'll understand even better why at the end of this conversation. In 2008, I authored that book that Paul mentioned, The Kind of Man Every Man Should Be. And in doing so, I kind of wrote it out of a desire to see some changes take place. I'd been in talk radio for a little while, and here in New York, I was on AM 570, and I would get a regular phone caller. Not one phone caller, she was representative of several phone callers, but they were middle-aged women that had been wildly successful in their career, and they were wondering why they had just been left behind by the culture and by the men of the culture, and sadly of the men of the church. And I wanted to delve deeper into what was missing in the man. So focusing on the issue of how men had become really just a mere shadow of what God intended them to be, I did a lot of research for that book. And beginning back in the 1960s, we saw a paradigm shift in manhood in America. And this paradigm shift said something unique for the first time that it never said before. And it said that no longer were men and women thought of as equally, they were thought of as interchangeable. And that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. If you say that a man is the same as a woman, most people in America will say that's a great thing. It turned out to be a deadly thing. The dominant social construct of that day all the way till now represented that major shift. And it's an entirely anti-biblical turn that society began to make. In an effort to force a sexualized agenda, the very struggles that we're talking about today, on the culture at large, distinctions between men and women had to be done away with. They had to be forgotten. They had to be buried. The fundamental alternative view that began to replace it was that the sexes exist this day, the predominant view of men and women, that they are essentially interchangeable and the same. And this drives our view societally on sex, sexual practice, abortion, the formation of family, even the grooming of children. When we erased the distinctions, we told the sexes that fundamentally all humans are interchangeable. And in doing so, we gave root to a fundamental idea that is really true. Dr. Tony Evans puts it best. He said, if you have two people and they are essentially the same, you've immediately eliminated the need for one of them. We don't want to be useless in our society, and that's what men have become in large measure because of this paradigm shift. So today's panel, we're going to seek to bring some clarity as to the fallout of how all of this has happened against women, who I believe, and I wrote in my book, are one of the biggest victims of this mindset that the sexes are interchangeable and not necessarily equal. So I'm excited to have this discussion, and I think it's a conversation long overdue.